All right, welcome back. Today we're going to jump into our limited series called Exited, where we're going to be speaking with exited founders, members of the 7% of the 35 million businesses out there that have gone on and successfully exited. So hopefully we can have some insights from these conversations, apply the lessons learned into our businesses today as we bootstrap billions. Today we have with us Elisa Wood. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I just think this is the most tremendous concept. I wish you had been around back when I was starting my first business.
I love it. Oh, let's get into that. So like if we were talk about the very first business, when was the first business and what was it?
So it was like way back in the early 2000s. It was a company called Real Energy Writers, which I started with another writer-editor. This was like before like content creation companies were a big thing. We were kind of like new on the scene, but we saw a huge need in the energy industry. Companies really needed content. So we started this company to supply it. And yeah, I learned, if you want to know what one of my biggest lessons was, it was a great company. We did well. We actually sold it later, but we were two editors starting a company together. So for those folks who are in the content business, I realized that's a really not a good idea. It's great to have two editors, but if you're going to have two editors, you need somebody who's on the sales side too. So that was my first big lesson.
Money matters. And hopefully it's going to be the first of many lessons that we pull out of today's conversation. So for the audience, just to give them a quick read in, you did build a business called Microgrid Knowledge. You founded it in 2014. You went on, was it Bootstrapped?
It was Bootstrapped. Oh, yeah.
Bootstrap business,
All the
which we
way.
love, absolutely. And you went on and you exited it in 2022. It was a healthy seven-figure exit. You exited to Endeavor Business Media. And there's a whole story in between, right? Because oftentimes we see these headlines and we see, the triumphs and we see the numbers. And oftentimes in our market, we see nothing at all because there really is no coverage. And what we want to do is celebrate, elevate, and then also learn. And I'm hoping that on today's podcast, we can get into the details. When you're thinking about this, because it's been a few years, 2022 has been a few years now. You've had some time to digest. Where's the indigestion? So when you think about the experience.
Oh, my God. Lots of indigestion. Oh, my God. Well, just first of all, building something like this, takes so much work. Lots of times when we didn't have weekends off. I mean, weekends off were a rarity, honestly. So building it just first of all was hard. We got stuck in a COVID thing like so many people did. We were about to exit actually to another company, but then COVID hit. Just to give you a little background, Microgrid Knowledge is a website that provides content for this industry within the power industry called microgrids. And so we had a publication and we also had a conference. And so pre-COVID, we had this big conference coming up. We had a potential buyer who wanted to strike a deal after the conference to see how this conference did. We were very close with that. And it was March 2019. And so we're planning this big conference for June 2019. And our exit is like, this conference is important to our exit. And boom, COVID hit. No conference.
No conference, yes.
So we did what, every bootstrap company does. We pivoted. The famous word, right? That's the word we all use. Time to pivot.
AKA figure it out. Yeah.
Figure it out. And we learned very, very, very quickly how to do a online conference. And all was well in the end, but I can tell you those few months were hell.
Yeah, I could only imagine. Yes. Yeah, that's a part of the story that I didn't understand coming in, didn't have line of sight into, which is oftentimes what we're seeing in many of these conversations in market. All right, let's take a quick break from today's episode and shout out our sponsor, Gelt. Right, their founder, Tal, was on episode 13 of Bootstrapping to Billions, where he dropped a ton of knowledge on our audience, created a ton of value. And Gelt is doing exactly that in this ecosystem, building a ton of value. If you're building a business, it's important to know taxes are not just the cost of growth. Handled correctly, they can actually help fuel it. That's where Gelt comes in. Gelt helps founders and business owners turn taxes into a growth lever, aligning your entity, salary, income mix, so every dollar you earn works harder for you. Their team of expert CPAs, supported by in-house built AI technology, keeps your filings organized, your tax estimates accurate, and your income tax predictable and small. If you're scaling fast, don't let taxes slow you down. See how Gelt helps founders and business owners use proactive tax strategies to drive growth, reduce your taxes, and do more with your business at joingelt.com. Mention Bootstrapper in the contact and receive 10% off your first year on us. Again, that's joingelt.com, joingelt.com. All right, back to today's pod. A lot of folks are getting offers. Some folks are getting offers and it's like the first offer. Some folks are just receiving offers and they may not even be real offers, but it's bringing them into this mindset of a potential exit. And then they need to go through this process. You had somebody that was coming in. It was contingent upon this conference. Real life, because life is a real thing, happens. COVID happens. Conferences are shut down. You had to pivot into it. Did you lose the conversation of that exit and that offer? Did they walk away, or did it change your perspective and change your approach and you went and found and ran a process? Or what was that experience post-conference?
Yeah. So they were a company that did a lot of conferences. And so when
Mm,
COVID hit, they got hit really hard. So they shut down all their acquisitions at that point in time.
oof.
And so it was just the deal was off. And we kind of just left the idea of even being acquired aside at that point. It was more like
Okay.
everybody was focused on survival, right? So we were
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to do these online conferences. I gotta say, relationships are everything, right?
Yeah.
Because we had a lot of sponsors that we had great relationships with, and they stuck with us. They said, "Okay, fine. Go ahead, do an online conference. We'll stay with you. Keep the sponsorship money." And everybody was great, and they stayed with us, and we did put together. I wouldn't say it was a great online conference. It was our first. I mean, everybody was figuring out Zoom, and we all had horrible lighting. How it was. um, but but um, but it was good enough that they asked us to do another one. That was in like June. They wanted us to do another one the following fall, and so we suddenly discovered that, hey, this is a pretty decent business, at least at this point in time. So through that whole COVID period, we did 3 online conferences that went really well. But then, everybody started getting, "Hey, we wanna go back out, we wanna meet people." So we tiptoed into our first conference, live conference, in-person conference, I guess. Live isn't the right word, right? Everybody's alive all the time, but, um, in-person
In real life.
conference,
Yeah.
in real life, real people, talking to people. In California, we decided to do a small conference. We rented a place for only 100 people, just
Okay.
tiptoe back in. People were still nervous about coming out, and, um so we had to keep calling the hotel back and saying, um, "Can we have a few more people come? A few more people?" And then pretty soon we had hit 200 people because so many people wanted to come to this conference, and we had to host. The hotel was like, "No more." Um, but it went really, really well, and we tiptoed back in, and then that's when
Definition of a
sort of
champagne problem.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that was a champagne problem. Um, but it was then as we started getting back into those in-person conferences again that the idea of being acquired came up. That original buyer did come back,
Okay.
as well as another. We had actually, we were talking to a few people, and so
Let's talk about that for a second. So, the concept of even it coming about in the first place. Couple of quick questions. When they first came pre-COVID, was it them reaching out to you, or were you actually at the stage of, hey, let's go about potentially getting acquired?
they reached out to us,
Okay, so this was
and
something that came inbound to you,
yes,
and it set the concept in your head for the very first time. When you
I wouldn't
received
say it
it,
was not in our heads, because I had a partner. So we had a business partner who had exited before.
mhm.
And so it was in his mind, he was thinking about that. It wasn't the plan. We weren't building it for that purpose, but it was there.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's something that's super interesting, especially for the audience listening, because there's tons of folks that are at that stage where they have a business. I mean, you worked on your business building it for 8 years prior to getting it to that point of exit. There's a lot of folks that have put so much effort, energy into their business to get it where it's today, and some folks are thinking about it. So it is in the minds of many of, should I exit? Should I sell? Is this something that I can sell? Many folks, it's not at all. And there are a handful of folks out there that are receiving these inbound offers. And it's like, well, what do I do when that happens? And what's the right type of mentality and measure to take? So just like thinking about kind of that moment in time when you were there, what were you thinking? What was the mental model you used to make the decision? Let's do this and let's move forward.
Okay, it's the mental month. So I was actually a holdout on selling it. I was I really loved the
Interesting.
business
Yeah.
and the work, and I kind of felt like we could grow more,
Okay.
and maybe it was too soon. But so, another thing that comes into play, we think about the money, we think about the timing, but also if you have partners, one of my partners wanted to retire and he had worked really hard and done a lot in his life and definitely deserved a good retirement. And so, that was really the impetus for us selling at that point in time is that he was
Gotcha.
ready to go. And I couldn't see us trying to run this company with two me and the other partner that were left. We were two editors again and the third one was the business guy, and
Sales.
he
Yeah.
left, and so yeah, so that was a really big impetus for the sale, but there was another thing too, it wasn't just that, it was also that and I guess this is pretty classic for bootstrap businesses, is we had grown to a point where we had to make a decision. We were either gonna continue to be this small, scrappy business and not capture all the opportunity that was coming our way, or we were gonna have to, you know,
Go through a
start
transformation.
yeah, be a different kind of company,
Yeah.
basically, or sell to somebody who could had the infrastructure to do the things we were doing. And so that's another big reason we opted to sell because we were looking for a company that could take our conference and grow it,
Mhm.
um, and our publication and grow it. So that was a
Yeah,
big decision.
that's super valuable and helpful, I feel like, because the professional service businesses, agencies, media, a lot of things that require that human component, that human function. A lot of those businesses are bootstrapped many times. More often than not, I'm sure there's a lot of folks listening right now that are living that life. And you do get to these moments of time of constraint, and they're very real constraints because life is a very real thing. And many of
Mhm.
us build our business, our lifestyle business to support our life.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, this business becomes a constraint on our life. And it's like, well, what do we do with our hands? Like, what do we do next? Do we go out and raise money? Do we find somebody who could strategically take it over? What are our options? Do we refine back? Do we simplify? Very interesting that you're in this moment of time. Somebody came to you, it opened up this conversation, challenges took place. Post challenge, you figured it out. And then you went back into this mode of potentially looking at acquisition. And in this situation, there was many buyers. Did you try to go find the buyers and line up the potential for a competition in a process? Or did you have multiple buyers at that time have already come to you?
Both were going on at that point in time. We were like in one comes to mind in particular that we went and talked to because we were thinking, "Oh, they would be a good one,"
Because this is post
others were
couple
inbound.
digital. We're now back into real life. We
We
were at the hotel. We got to 200 successful event. We're back at that stage of let's get back to the exit. Original interested party came back involved, and then you had
yes.
multiple potential competitors to compete on that sale. How did
Yes,
you get
we
those?
were just to get the numbers right, we were actually at that point, we're up to about 600 people were coming to our conference, and, we were like
Amazing.
that's where it was that was when it was getting like, "Okay, this is" like, you're looking at when you get to that point, you're starting to the hotels that you could use for your conference are fewer and far between. People
Yeah,
were saying
the
to us, "You just have to
logistics.
start thinking more about, like, convention centers and stuff." It was just a whole different deal. So, yeah, they were coming to us, we were going to them, both things were going on. We were really looking for the right home.
Did you work relationships? How did you get intros to the folks that you were creating a process with? So you were introducing competition, which a
Yeah.
lot of folks listening, they're receiving these offers and sometimes they just go into the one conversation instead of creating a process and creating competition. And, the fact that you did it, it's super interesting. I'm curious how you manufactured it. Was it by chance and you had many people come in and that was luck and amazing luck because things work out? Is it the fact that you pursued it? How did you pursue it? Did you break in through relationships? Did you work
Yes.
with brokers, business brokers, or
No, it was all through relationships, and I think that's we have an advantage of being in this niche energy market where everybody knows everybody. Everybody in publishing knows everybody else. Everybody who's doing conferences knows everybody else. So it was easy for us to know who to go to and who to talk to, and it was easy for them to recognize us as somebody to come to and talk to. So we never we never used a broker, and we didn't have to in our space. I can see how somebody may feel they need to do that if they're not sure, like, who their possible acquirers are, for one thing, right?
Yeah.
But for us, it was pretty clear, like, who was out there, who was acquiring, who was doing this. So,
You're living
but
in it. And it's a niche. And it was a niche that you essentially helped grow. You were a part of.
yes.
So that's also interesting too. What was the experience like coming into something, building something in 2014, where the market was pretty new? It was a nascent market, and you identified it as opportunity, and then you got
It
to
was crazy.
experience the growth. Yeah, take us through that.
It was crazy. So we started a publication called Energy Efficiency Markets, and it was doing okay, but not great. And and then we
This was
occasionally
the
would write.
2000 business. This was the
This is a
original phase.
2000 business, yep,
Yes,
Energy Efficiency Markets,
love
and
it.
it's doing okay. But we started writing about microgrids as part of that publication, and we were carefully watching our Google Analytics, and we would see every time we
Mm,
wrote about microgrids, bang, like the readership would just spike. And
very smart.
so we were also noticing that people in the industry were talking a lot more about microgrids because Superstorm Sandy had happened in 2012, and that had
Yes,
caused massive power outages. And so people were looking for a way to avoid that in the future. This microgrid technology is a way to do that. So everybody was talking about microgrids, like, oh, this might be the way to do it. And so, but nobody was really doing. I mean, there were very few. There were some out there, but it was not an industry. But we were captivated. I mean, I have to say, we didn't do any kind of, other than that Google Analytics spike that I mentioned to you, we didn't really do a whole lot of market research. We talked to a couple of companies that were poking around. One large energy technology company called me up. It was a really funny conversation. He said, "Hey, I read your article on microgrids. Did you really mean that? Do you really think that there's potential here?" And I said, "Yeah, I think this is a fascinating technology." And he said, "I do too, and I'm trying to convince my boss." They ended up coming in as one of our first sponsors. They were very
love it.
supportive. Yeah, and then another similar big company was also sort of eyeing the market, and those 2 sponsors that came on early on was just so key to our survival
Indicator
at the
of
beginning.
interest. Yes.
Yeah, because there was like no there was, like you said, there was not really an industry built yet. They were thinking about building this industry basically. So, yeah, we grew up with the industry, we were right there kind of, nudging it along and cultivating it, and it was cultivating us, and so it was a really good relationship.
Yeah, how cool is that too? And like this is important because for a number of reasons. I know it's exited podcast and a function of exit is start right. So exit one, exit your day job, make your business your job. And what I just heard is a couple of really, really cool things for folks listening to maybe pay attention to. You were writing something, you had an audience, you used the insight and data of your audience in terms of interest of Google Analytics, and you saw a spike and you said, maybe there's something here. That's crazy. Anybody can do that. And you did it, which is amazing. And then if you go even deeper into the story behind why perhaps and why something developed, you had this natural catastrophe that was Hurricane Sandy, which was a massive, massive impact on the region, a
Yep.
big problem. It
Mhm.
created a huge problem. And because there was such a big problem, folks were trying to be like, hey, well, how do we solve this in the future? Which created this concept of perhaps the solution of a market developing around microgrids, which is
Exactly.
literally like the inception of a of a market to be a part of. And you
Yeah,
saw it all, and then you got a
and
part of
and
it.
and the strange thing is that, we've continued to have a lot of natural catastrophes from, wildfires to earthquakes to more hurricanes, and, like, one time somebody said to me, only half jokingly, if you want to follow the microgrid market, follow the carnage, because,
Mm.
climate change has caused so much to happen. And microgrids were a way to, keep the power flowing when you lose it because of any of those catastrophes. So yeah, we sort of had like in a weird kind of way, we had nature kind of working with us too. A shame, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, problems are a real thing and problems need to get solved, and that's a great place to build a business. And it's like sell it, make it, exit it. You sold it first because you found a sponsor that reached out, somebody who was potentially looking at this thing in which a market was developing around, and you had enough of a voice to be able to be that person they went to as the brand recognition of kind of like the lightning rod to potentially say, hey, let's go. and you sold. And like the validation of the fact that there was revenue there, sell it, make it, you then made it, you positioned it was a complete rebrand and a relaunch of early publication to new publication, and it was a focus, or what was
Yeah,
that process like? Yeah.
we initially kept energy efficiency markets and started this new one, Microgrid Knowledge, but then we very quickly realized that Microgrid Knowledge was sucking up all of our time. It was too much to try to maintain the two publications, and the other one, just didn't have all the juice that Microgrid Knowledge had. So, we
I feel
made,
like
it was a
there's a
hard
pun
decision.
intended there. So
That's right. But we made it was a hard decision to make because, you build something, you don't want to just let it go. We
yeah.
felt bad about letting it go. But we also realized that there was huge potential with microgrids, and that if we wanted to capture it, we needed to really, go for it. And one of the things that really worried us a lot was that there were a lot of bigger energy publications and energy publishers out there.
Mm.
And we were really afraid that if we didn't quickly establish ourselves as the voice in that market, they were going to come in, they were going to recognize this market growing, and they were going to capture it. So we went really hard and fast early on to make sure that, we got the captured like the SEO, captured the keywords, and that we had relationships with the key sponsors, and that we were producing like valuable content for the industry, valuable educational content for the industry. So so it was a lot of really putting the pedal to the metal early
Nope.
on.
Yeah, I mean, strategy equals focus for sure. And as folks say, the riches in the niches, which I feel like is typically validated,
Yes.
especially in the bootstrap space for sure, because it gives you focus, and strategy does equal focus. And you can then
Yep.
focus on the right things, and then you could apply your limited resources towards the right things, and you could hopefully influence the right things and get the right things as an outcome, inputs to outputs. Love it. Did you focus there because that was where the money and the feedback from the market was? Like, did it start to take up the time because it became there was there's like a reason why, or did it take up the time because of a thesis, and then it was like, let's seize the market and be first movers here? So was it a simple bet and you were taking a
It was a bet.
chance, or was
It
it
was a bet.
feedback to bring you in?
It was largely a bet. I mean, we it was an educated bet. I had been writing about energy for many years before this.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't coming to this cold. I knew how these markets
Yeah.
worked and where they tended to go. So we were betting on that, and we weren't initially making a lot of money, but there was the promise of it there.
Mm-hmm.
We could see
You saw it,
what kind of players were going to become interested in this. We could see there was going to be a lot of demand for this.
and you
Uh,
wanted to be there first, and you wanted to be
exactly.
that brand, and that's why you made the focus and the investment that you were saying, and that the investment cost time. And
Yes.
that time was time away from other things, which then
Hmm.
became the bet to focus on this one thing, which
Exactly.
was the right bet,
Exactly.
it sounds like, too. One of the
It
things that you said
was.
earlier was, it became this investment, and I can't remember, we're gonna have to go back to the videotape, but there was this couple of words that you used that made it feel like an identity. I think you even alluded towards the exit. And what I wanted to get into from there was the concept of post exit, how it felt, the concept of building something for 8 years and then having to potentially give it up, the transitional feelings of going through that, like that whole concept of the vestment that we have in our businesses. It's us, we build, and it's our babies to a certain extent. We put so much into it, and then you're going through this experience of potentially discussing even selling it, and then, like, what is it like after?
It was hard. It was really hard because, like I said, I loved doing this work. I loved this business. So it was hard. The thought of giving it up and giving it up was difficult. It was also hard for me because I've never much worked for other companies. I've been pretty much working on my own
Mm,
since I had a couple of jobs after college, like newspaper reporting and stuff. But other than that, I was either freelance writing or, starting something. And so now here I was going to have to go to work for a company for a year because, that was the deal that we exited, that we'd stick around for a year to help them transition, which is totally fair. But that was like a big deal for me because I hadn't done that or wanted to do that much in my life. I'm pretty fond of the bootstrap life.
freedom.
Yeah, freedom and self determination, right?
Mhm.
So that was a big. a big thing, realizing that, a year of my life I'd be doing this other thing. So yeah, I would say, it's both euphoric because you've done it, you've succeeded, you've grown it where, somebody else wants it,
Hmm.
and you're going to make a nice bit of money, but it's also hard and kind of sad and kind of disruptive, in your life too. So yeah, it was bittersweet, I guess is the term, right?
Once it
Yeah.
all happened, once it closed,
Mhm.
did you feel what? How did you feel after? Did you feel a
I
sense
didn't
of
know.
euphoria? Did you feel
Yeah.
what's
Euphoria, yeah.
next? Did you feel a void?
Yeah, I felt euphoria, because, you know how it is before you close, there's, like, so much that goes on just beforehand, like, "Oh my god, they need this, and do we have that?" And, this person's not sure, there's, like, all
Almost like
those
an
just
angst. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of angst towards the end, there's a lot of paperwork flying back and forth, and, you're not sure if, somebody's gonna pull out. You always hear the stories about, somebody pulling out at the last minute, and, my partner was always fond of saying that nothing ever happens until you actually have the check.
Yeah. There's always fear
So
on the deal for sure.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So there was a big sense of relief when we did close and it happened. And then there was the sense of, okay, now we have to integrate into this new business and help them, So there was a lot kind of to do. But that wasn't the real hard transition for me. The hard transition for me was when I finished up that year of working with them. And the next day, like I was putting out newsletters like crazy and doing all this content and everything. And then suddenly the day after I stopped working for them, it was like, what am I going to do now?
Yeah, let's talk
And
about that.
all the people I was used to working with, I wasn't seeing them this morning, or whatever, seeing them on the screen. But yeah, so there's definitely a lot of emotional side to these kind of exits that
How
I
long
think you
did it
don't
take you
think
to
about.
get past that? So you essentially were distracted with the integration. So you
Mhm.
got to close. There's a lot of potential anxiety, which there is because it's like you don't know, right? And it's like this thing that you want because you made this decision to go after it. And then there's all these contingencies that could, take it away in a sense. And we get distracted with like, let's get it done. And then it happens. And then so like there's definitely that sense of, well, almost like a relief euphoria, like, okay, we did
Yep.
it. It happened. We're good. And then it's immediate almost distraction into the integration because now there's a job to be done. And
Yep.
now it's like, I got to make good on this deal. So it's
Mhm.
like almost to a sense contractual to, like I got to do these things.
Yep.
And it's very clear. And then all of a sudden that's gone. And now it's an exit because you're out and you have to feel that feeling. How long did that last, and how did you handle it? How did you get through?
It lasted for a while, like a few months, I'd say.
Yeah.
And I was used to talking to so many people every day, and suddenly I wasn't. That was tough. I mean, we did some traveling, my husband and I, like everybody seems to do after an exit, right?
Yeah, but those relationships, there's voids.
There's voids in relationships. Yeah, I miss the relationships a lot. Yeah, and I ended up starting another publication.
How soon after?
So I started it about. I mean, I guess I officially got it going about 6 months after that. Um,
So you
but I
really
did
didn't waste too much time. You
no.
didn't Did you have that as a plan in your mind? Did you know that, okay, I'm gonna go through this, I'm gonna do what I need to do, and then after this, there's gonna be the next thing? Did you already have a sense of there will be a next thing for me? Or did you
Yeah,
have to
I
find that out in the first 6 months?
no, I pretty much knew that I wanted to
Interesting.
keep doing
Yeah.
this, but also in publishing in the world of Google, you want to have real estate on Google as soon as possible if you're going to do a publication because it takes a long time to get the ranking and SEO and whatnot.
Mm.
So I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I had to at least get some real estate up there. I mean, I knew generally what I wanted to do, but I had to get some real estate up there, and then I could form it, I could carve it as I went along. And so I also did have a non-compete, so I had to be careful not to tread on their space and let them do what they needed to do to
Mhm.
grow. Um, so it was kind of tricky, and I couldn't hire people that I wanted to hire because of the non-compete.
Yeah,
That's
those
typical that you
relationships.
again, like, and it's all totally right.
Cost
I mean, I
benefit,
think
yeah.
yeah, it's the way it should be. Um, so, yeah, so I kinda slowly moved into feeling my way into what the next thing was gonna be, and, um,
That's
talking
interesting
to
because,
people and
like, I'm listening to you say it, and I could almost see that the plan was there, but maybe there was more of than plan. It was more personality of having been a bootstrapper and having been building businesses for so long. It's almost like you knew the things that needed to be in place and you wanted to be proactive into it. Like the resourcefulness just rose to the top, just put it into function, which I can see almost like behind your eyes as you're going through the story of it, which is so
Yeah.
real and visceral. It's going to be interesting as I go through more of these conversations, speaking with exited founders and folks that come from different spots and different moments in time and different past experiences, what that period after post exit is for different folks through different life experiences going in. I do know and I feel that most folks that I've already, because we all have relationships, and even though we're going to go through the journey of this pod doing the exited series, speak to a lot of exited founders, and at some point back in the day, I used to host these workshops for something called Founders Depression that we actually found a lot of folks that sold and exited as well as failed in their businesses kind of went through, and it was like a almost like a depressive moment in time, and we
Mm.
tried to raise awareness doing events in the city, New York City. We sponsored it with my firm. And it was just a conversation. So I got to have a lot of those conversations with folks. And I know that that period oftentimes does leave a sense of a void, and it's a sense of an opportunity to find and journey and think about things that you didn't have the opportunity to think about. And I'm personally very curious. Yeah, if there's any sort of data points that we could put together of folks that have bootstrapped,
Yeah.
if it's multiple ventures, if it's their first venture and then an exit, if it's multiple ventures going through and then they experience the exit. Uh, I'm curious, like how fast people get into the next thing, how many people get into the next thing. All of these things I'm super curious about in terms of having this series being put together. And the fact that you're sharing your journey, I think is just something to be able to celebrate and elevate, because not a lot of folks oftentimes will too, right? A lot of folks sometimes just won't share. And I think not a lot of the time folks have the opportunity to in this market. And it's
Yeah.
information that if you don't live it, you don't have it. So if you don't live it, you don't have it if you don't hear it from somebody
Hmm.
who did. So the
Yeah.
fact that you're doing this with us today, I super appreciate for a lot of reasons. Earlier, we were talking about creating competition in the process and actually putting a process together. Lexi Grant, she was on the pod and she's a friend of the pod. They got acquired and she's doing amazing things in the market right now, actually helping folks put processes together and finding and creating competition. I want to get back to that moment in time with you. So we're at 600 folks into the event. We're back at that stage where we're going to go through the exit process. We've made this decision. You were kind of the reluctant holdout, but everybody got you on board. There's a reason why partnerships matter, and we got to support our partners for sure. Amazing. You got multiple folks in. What was the process working with buyers? Like what was your approach? Can you take us through your actual approach of having conversations, vetting the buyers? What were
Hmm.
you paying attention to when you were talking to the other side of the table that helped you
Yeah.
kind of make the decision of ultimately where to go and how to approach it?
Yeah. You're making me remember that there were like, we did talk to like one entity that we said, you know what, they don't have the really have the money, this isn't going to work. And I think that, I mean, you really got to make sure who you're talking to can acquire you, right?
Mhm,
um, so that was a big thing that we vetted from that angle, but we also vetted from very much from could they take this conference, this publication, and could they scale it, and were they willing to scale it? Do they want it for that reason?
mhm,
Um, because we felt a real obligation to the people who had helped us build it, the sponsors who had helped us build it, and we wanted to make sure we were handing off the company to someone who could continue to support. So that was really important to us as we were talking to them. There were a lot of conversations that were kind of like, "What are your intentions?"
mhm,
Yeah, it's interesting because business is so much about numbers, right? But really, I feel like a lot of what went on was us feeling each other out. Like they were probably feeling us out to see if we were legitimate. I don't know, and we were certainly feeling them out to see if we handed this over to them, would it just get like 'cause you hear that all the time, like publications get sold and then they just die.
mhm.
And so we were wanted to make sure that it was going to somebody who would keep it moving. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's a real human side to this, right? I mean, you're really
Hmm.
checking out the people. You're trying to understand the people you're talking to, who they are, and if you can trust them, and if they have the same philosophy as you. And so there's a lot of that, a lot of that that went on, I think, in the conversations. Unfortunately, and then I was going to say, unfortunately, also there's a lot that's not within your control because some of the companies are owned by bigger companies, and the bigger companies can make decisions that, you know, that maybe go against the acquisition, or, or just don't support it in the way you want it to be supported. So a lot of moving parts, I guess, and a lot of things to consider and a lot of meetings.
What was yeah, talk about the meetings. What was the velocity of conversation? So how quickly did you have multiple folks involved? How quickly were you having conversations between folks? How quickly were you moving the deal down the pipe? How quickly were you killing it on the vine fast in terms of buyers you didn't want? Like, what was the velocity of the deal?
So, I mean, it depends on how you look at it, because it started with that one company before COVID, and then, came, so that was like years.
Hmm.
But when we really started moving,
Yeah.
I would say, I don't remember exactly, but it was a months long process, not a years long process.
Yeah. So relatively
Yeah,
fast then.
it was relatively fast. It was fast. Yeah. And then once we like settled on who the partner was going to be, then it was a matter of just getting all the legal work done. And that
Mhm.
too was, a few months probably. I think, yeah, about 3 months from the time it's like, yeah, this one. And we actually closed about 3 months.
So you're feeling it out, you're having the conversations. The goal and intention was continuity of business and
Hmm.
continuity of the ability to not only continue, but also to continue with a level of excellence to grow the vision in which you've already set. And you were looking for partners that could help execute on that. So you kind of already had your sell box because, like, folks have buy boxes. I think that owners should have sell boxes equally.
Huh.
I think it's equally as important. A function of what we're trying to do in terms of the work we want to do is ultimately go from 7% of folks exiting to 100% of folks exiting. I think a function of that is creating better business owners that build exit ready businesses, but also better buyers. And I think building a better buyer and having growing the buy side of the market is also equally as important. All of these things get us closer to 100%. You have your sell box. You were working through a months long process, not years. So you were quickly killing the deals on the vine in terms of who would be potential good buyers for you as a seller. And then you got to the point where you got into an LOI and you went through the deal process. How prepared did you feel at that moment in time to go from there to close?
Yeah. So I have to confess that not a lot of pressure was on me at that time because I was the editor. It was my business partner who was really under the gun at that point in time, because that's when, you're producing a lot of your financials, or you're verifying. You've already produced your financials, but you're verifying your financials now.
It's a good thing
And
he was a
so
motivated partner.
it's a hard thing. Yeah. I mean, he warned me ahead of time. He said, this is going to be tough. They come back to you with a lot of detailed questions about your finances.
Hmm.
That was a really good lesson learned for me. It made me, like, in starting this new business, like, make sure I have my books really solid from the beginning,
Yeah, it
because
kills
you don't want to be
deals.
scrambling at the end. Yeah.
Definitively
Yeah.
kills deals, then you get beat up on pricing and terms. It's a
Yeah.
great way to either
Exactly.
kill it or to get taken advantage of, without a doubt, and it's a
Exactly.
proactive measure every owner could take. Definitive I appreciate you sharing that for sure. Outside of the financials, what else did you feel like was, potentially the fires? Like, what were the things that were the anxiety producing, through that process? "Oh my gosh, we are sweating it out. Let's get this to close. Let's get this to."
Yeah. Well, for some reason, everybody I knew who had ever sold a business or had been involved in the sale of a business had to tell me their story about a deal falling apart at that point in time, So, I was just waiting for something to go wrong all the time, because I heard so many stories about, day before the closing, I got a phone call and they said, sorry, we can't do it. So that was the biggest anxiety at that point in time, the financials, and just like wondering, like, what can possibly go wrong.
Almost
We
the
didn't
the
have
known
any.
unknowns to a certain extent then.
Yeah, the known unknowns. That's exactly what it was, because we didn't really have any. I can't think of anything that came up concrete that was a problem. Like, there wasn't, like, the buyer wasn't coming to us and asking strange things or doing anything that would signal a problem. It was more just the noise out there I was hearing about what happens in acquisitions so often, that they don't always go through. So that was the big stress at that point in time.
You said you
The
weren't working
waiting.
with a broker, but did you have anybody on your side of the table that were kind of there other than your partner who had already lived through it? Did you have any other
Yeah,
outside counsel?
we had an attorney, of course, and an accountant, but we also had. I've got to do a shout out to my brother. My brother has sold and acquired several businesses over the course of his career. So I was calling him all the time,
Yeah,
and he gave us a
so you
lot
had a
of good
very
advice.
close advisor
Yeah, yeah,
working you through the process. I love that. Yeah, that's super
yeah.
fortunate.
He really helped me a lot in terms of, I think another thing something we haven't really talked about is valuing the company.
Mhm.
How do you value your company?
Yeah.
Um, and he talked me through the different ways that a company can be valued, and what likely our company, how it would likely be valued.
Let's talk about
And yeah.
that. Price and terms. Who set the price and terms? Was it set to you? Did the
hmm
did the
It
buyers
was said
come
to
with price
us.
and terms to you first? And did you already have it because you were having those conversations with your brother? Did you already have something in your mind as well? And how
Yeah.
large of a variance was it?
Uh,
Because I know we don't want to get into specifics.
yeah, I can't get into
Yeah.
specifics. I thought the company, I think this is probably every single seller ever has said this. I thought the company was worth more. So I did have a higher number in my mind, but it was more set by the buyer than by us. And yeah, I mean, there's variability here, right? It's like there's
Did
it's
they
not
talk you through their process of how they got to a price and then how they would break down the terms on the backside?
yes, they did. They talked us through it, and it
How
did
did
make
that
sense.
feel? Because I think that that's a moment in time that's very important, and a lot of
So
owners are gonna get to that moment, and it will oftentimes be their first moment in time that they're experiencing it, and you're almost trusting the other side because you're like, "Hey, I'm selling this once, they've done this X number of times. Let me lean on them, or let me listen to them, or they're the expert in this conversation."
yeah.
And that's could be very, very risky. So how did that feel for you? How did you approach that?
Um, so I guess there's two ways, right, basically, to look at the value of a business. One is what the profit is right now and what the potential profit is.
Mhm,
And and I guess it varies quite a bit by industry. Um, yeah, there comes a point where you have to sort of say, um, am I being realistic in my expectations? So I
mhm.
think I had to come down on my expectations a little bit. And but I mean it was still a good deal, and I was happy with it,
But a very real
but
thing, and not a lot of folks will
yeah.
know. I think that you came in with a lot more information than a lot of folks oftentimes will have because you had more exposure to resources. You had a partner that already did it. You have a brother who's done it. You had
Mhm.
folks around you in terms of support. You have the ability to research yourself, being in the game that you are, media,
Mhm.
and doing deep dives. Not everybody has the same or will be in the same. Feel remiss if I don't plug it. I don't want to on these pods, but bootstrapper.ai, if you do sign up, then we do real-time valuations. So every week we benchmark valuations of a business. So you know what your business is worth today, and then you get risk and assessments of what it could be worth in the future if you remove the things that would kill the value of your deal. So you could take set actions and hopefully provide a little bit more infrastructure because that's a very real thing. It's like, well, what is it worth? And there's different things that impact valuations based on different types of businesses. And there are ways that professional buyers on the capital allocation side look. And that stuff isn't oftentimes talked about because it's part of the competitive advantage. Right. So like we want to be able
Yeah.
to open that up and make that, important right to the top. For folks that potentially are listening at this stage, this is definitely the Glengarrys of the audience. These are the folks that have stuck with us to the end and they've appreciated and enjoyed your journey. And I'm hoping, which I feel like is a high probability, took value out of the story that you shared today. If there was anything that you could ask of them as a little bit of an exchange of value, they got some value from you. If there could be any way that the audience could potentially help you or exchange value in any way, shape, or form, or perhaps get in touch, What would that be?
Yeah, so I started another publication, this time a publication and a community called energychangemakers.com. So, come on over and take a look at us. We've got lots of, if you have any interest at all in energy and what's happening, the big changes that are occurring now, come take a look at it. Lots of stuff about innovation. We've got a newsletter. Come sign up. We'd love to have you.
Love it. And we'll put that in the show notes for sure. I appreciate you for joining us today, sharing your journey, sharing your story, sharing some insights, learned insights, the most valuable of all. Till next time, trust the process, commit to the journey.
Thank you so much.
All right.
That was great. Oh my.
If I could do it all again.
Struggling business? It's time to exit with ownership. Join the Exit Studio. Build equity. Unlock capital. Exit with ownership. Keep it simple.
I feel nauseous, believe me. Never had a lot of shit come easy. Had to work hard, struggle just to be me. Had to rise up just so they could see me. Did what I had to do just to feed me. And what was left over I put towards my dreaming. But the only thing in life that has meaning are the things you gotta work for, believe me. Take into your hands a plan. Your own hands can land your own brand. And damn, I feel like no one takes accountability. They want the credibility, convincingly unwilling to put in the hours it takes to get some power. Don't be fucking sour. Take a cold shower. Scream until you're louder. Work until you're prouder. And
you gotta have that grit, that hustle to make it in this city. Never give up.